Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
Why are you looking at me like that? Comrade Lancelot is turned off or out of range. Why won't they let me finish the contract? Boy. I can feel your command spells perfectly. Stop wasting time. I'm sick of standing here. Let's make a contract and solve problems as they arise. I'm starting to lose patience. Was it really necessary to pin these slow-witted people from the Mado clan on me? What? Why did my cursed seal activate? Black signs began to spread from the shoulder all over the body. There was also a difference from the standard disclosure. The skin in places ringed by the seal changed to white. It's very similar to the change in Obito's body after the Tentails was sealed into him. There were no such changes before, but the world was different. There was enough mana and rough prana in the air, which I previously considered Sanchakra. Apparently, the high energy saturation of the environment pushed the evolution of the body. But even in such favorable conditions, these processes would not have been possible without a huge number of changes in the body, ensuring a high connection of the aura with the outside world. Also, a dense interweaving of the aura with my body and magical shell. Huh. That's the reason. When I'm angry, my hormones jump. And with such a strong connection between the aura and the body, the cursed seal begins the first unsealing. I need to calm down. The last thing I need is to kill these idiots. While I was calming down, the old man came to his senses. Who are you? I'll answer the truth. Berserker. You can't be a berserker, they're all crazy and uncontrollable. I was just lucky. I was carrying an artifact that protects the mind from madness. If I take it off, I'll become a standard berserker. I caught madness while I was still alive. Intelligent berserker. This time, the Matu family has quite a chance of winning. Old man. You are not my master, but a boy, not Mado for a long time. Your family will not win this war, because it does not participate. So, boy, do you agree to fight, for the sake of fulfilling our desires? I extended my hand to the boy. Korea suddenly raised his head and began to look me in the eyes. Unexpectedly, he was shorter than me by almost a head. Yes. Huh. What a grip. You wouldn't know he was physically stronger than a normal person. And he grabbed me as if I were a life preserver. Bloody Grail. And the boy has a month left at most. I can save him. But why do I need that? While he is on the edge of his mind and body, I can write into his stupid head how to live correctly. After all, for me, he is the best choice. There will be another cynical bastard with a huge possessive instinct in this world. Fortunately, all the predispositions are there. Give orders, my master. And lead us to victory. Oh. Interesting contract. So I could have not signed a contract and lived here on my own. There is a limit on energy. All servants restore energy too slowly. And then mainly the restoration of mana and prana comes from artifacts. And how much can you get out of the iron? You can't get anything out of them. So, pitiful drops. And I have a mana pump built into my aura. Alavi. Got distracted. Well, gentlemen idiots? Who are we fighting against? Or does it make no difference whose guts we rip out? That's for me. A great start. The old man didn't pay attention to my remark. And the boy was twisted. After all, it was necessary to shove all sorts of creatures into the body? The simplest weaving towards our crawling bastard, and he stopped bending like he was having an attack of an attack. Or maybe he's suffering from rabies? Is there foam coming out of his mouth? And he's shaking quite a bit. One small healing was not enough for him. Korea. Sit down and don't move. I've already missed 3 times. They told you to sit down. The dog isn't finished yet. Of course I lied about the misses. I would have liked to hit the target. I wouldn't have been wasting my time with nonsense. But it's not that interesting. May I watch the worthless thing as it writhes on the ground? It's a pity he's not an enemy. It would be more fun. Korea. You should go to the hospital. You're not healthy. Look how pale your skin is. Or is that makeup? Were you trying to scare me? You can put a tick in your notebook. I almost shit myself. Honestly. The guy relaxed a little. I just don't understand why the healing worked. I wanted to torture him a little, but he felt better. It's a shame. Now it's easier for you. I pick it up and start checking it. Why did you do this to yourself? The left side does not respond to stimuli. The eye does not see. My head seems to hurt. Where did you get such terrible worms? Ahem. Old man Matto decided to remind everyone about himself. Well, we'll pour some slop on you too. So you caught it from the old man? Didn't your mother tell you not to kiss suspicious old men? They'll give you candy, and then you'll suffer from AIDS. And then you'll get hemorrhoids. Stop. If I'm not mistaken, the old man is your father? So you have incest here too? You. I'm not talking to you anymore. Don't be impudent, servant. Crucio. Grandpa. I am not a servant. I am a cursed sword. My task is to kill everyone. And even cut off the hand that guides me. And you, just a nonentity, whose place is at the feet of my master. Crucio. I hope it's clear to you. You're alive only because I'm too lazy to kill you. Get out of my house. What are you babbling about? I can't hear you. Get out of my house. He jumped to his feet abruptly and began to turn on the house's protective weaves. Various crawling creatures came crawling out from every crack. I've never worked part-time as a pest control service before. There's a first time for everything. I'll be careful not to burn down such a cool house because of a grumpy old man who doesn't understand jokes. Hellfire. Something is wrong. The flame is slightly worse, but not critical. But still. Something is wrong. Ah. I knocked him out without a wand. Then that's really cool. Using such a spell, without a crutch, losing control, is a pretty big achievement. Oops. He withdrew into himself again and almost burned the old man. Korea. Stop pretending. What are we going to do? What plans do we have, other than to epically bend everyone over? He stood up with a slight groan. We need to win the war and give the grail to the old man. And he will let Sakura go. Daughter? No. Then why? She is dear to me. And I promised her. Oh. Promises must be kept. Especially if on the way to fulfilling them there is an opportunity to reduce the population of this planet. What is obtained with blood is the most sincere. I tell you this as an experienced politician. You can't imagine how many lives one greedy bastard in power can ruin. But how nice it is to kill them. The war will begin when all the servants are called. Who forbids us to kill those who have already summoned servants? They are now relaxed and not ready to attack. Just like soldiers in a brothel, before the siege of a fortress. Rules. Ugh. What a damn piece of scrap metal. When did that steel mill wreck learn the rules? The Grail War is overseen by the church. So the nuns have you by the balls? You're even more worthless than I thought. Don't worry, I'll make a decent wizard out of you. Or maybe even a Dark Lord. I can wear that title by all the rules. But in my time, it was mainstream. Korea himself walked leaning against the wall. Huh. I'll treat him later. As soon as he's imbued with my ideals. I put my hands behind my head and slowly walk next to the master. But you're wrong, Korea. You've already drawn your sword from its sheath. All that's left for you is to kill your enemies. The war began when you acquired command spells. All we have left to do is step over 12 corpses. All for the fulfillment of our desires. As we left the Matu family estate, I asked a burning question. Hey, Korea. Do you have a place where you can land the piece of meat you call your body? I didn't hear an answer. You. Insolent dog. Answer when you are spoken to. I turned sharply towards him. Oops. What an ignoramus I got as a master. Now answer me, universe, is it polite to pass out in the middle of a conversation? You don't have to answer, I'm not interested in your opinion. Maybe I can help him? Of course we will help. He is my master. Bam. And the strongest blow to the bells in history belongs to the great me. And poor Korea depicts a caterpillar. But into consciousness. I asked you where to drag your ass, and you passed out. Will you stop pretending soon? The worms are tormenting you more than I hit you with. You could at least eat some garlic. Or do an enema with it. So what was I talking about? Where do you live, sick man? At the Matto estate. Stop. Then why the FCK are we leaving there? If you're ashamed to live with your parents, I understand, but why change your life so drastically? Why leave the place you've grown accustomed to? Let's kill the old man? There is no place for me there. I am not part of the Matto family. Who said that you will live there as your father's heir? There is such a thing as the right of the strong. We will kill your brother and nephew, we will not forget. We will kill your father first. And as the last Matto, you will be able to dispose of all the property by all legal rights. I assure you, none of the magicians will lift a finger. In the worst case, they will put a chick under you, who will give birth to your child and poison you. It's difficult. I only have a month left. We won't have time to do everything. Well, that's a different story. I approach from the left side and place my hand on the right shoulder. So that the rig is as trustworthy as possible. Right. You're right, about we. Forgive me, Korea. But you're worthless on your own. And together with me, we can do anything. And while we're doing great things, all the idiots from the Grail War will cut each other down. All that's left for us to do is finish off the weakened enemy. How about it? Do you like the idea? We can't leave the city. Well, whatever. So where are we going to live? I'm not used to going into a spiritual form. It probably played a role that I'm still alive. I lived in a rented apartment. And all my things were Damn. He's bending like the letter Z again. So what should I do with him? I'll probably heal him a little, but first I'll teach him a little lesson. Not another word. So you're a standard homeless person. Who hasn't? I remember, I lived on the street for a while too. But you're lucky. I know how to get our asses into a warm apartment. And the poor guy is still bending over. If I'm not mistaken, these larvae react to the increase in Korea's heartbeat. But in the state he's in now, it's impossible to calm down. And he won't have enough time for that. They'll devour him faster. And what should I do? I need him in an exhausted state. I remember one experience. A guy was locked in a basement and tortured. They didn't feed him, didn't give him water, and they tortured him. The torture was more acupuncture-based, so the body didn't turn into mincemeat. A day later, one of the executioners began to give the victim water. A little at a time. Once every couple of hours. But he didn't let him get drunk. So he slightly moved ahead of the other executioner. When the second day of torture ended, our kind executioner gave the victim water until his thirst was completely satisfied. And he continued to torture. All this was done silently. So that the victim would feel the lack of communication. And the torture continued. On the third day, the victim was fed. And from about that moment on, the prisoner begins to experience positive emotions towards the executioner. When another day passes, the executioner bringing food will begin to ease the torture. The second one will intensify the torture at this time. Not much, but so that the difference is felt. Such fluctuations in torture will last for 2 days. And the final chord will be the imprisonment of the prisoner in a cell where there is no light and sound. He will sit there for another 5 days, with breaks for food. The same executioner will bring him food. And at the end of the week, our prisoner will love and adore the executioner with all his soul. It will be enough to tell him a phrase like, "If you agree to lay down your life for me, I will get you out of here." And bam! You have the most faithful slave. Of course, there are nuances, but they are resolved by extending the torture program in order to break those with a stronger will. But with Korea, I will do it differently. I do not need a slave, but I will not refuse the Grail. And this issue is easily resolved. While our dear master is beyond his will, he can be instilled with the confidence that I will fulfill his desire and we will fight for my interests. And you don't even need to use magic. Everything is purely words and psychology. Ah. How dramatic. His wish can be fulfilled in the battle for the Grail. Blood, blood, more blood. Only by spilling rivers of blood can we pay for our soul's desires. Am I distracted again? Korea. Are you still with us or should I prepare the coffin? Kaka. Fuck off. Oh my god. He's already trying to snap back. The boy is growing up. And I wipe away a touching tear. Okay, enough of this one-man show. I'm offering you 3 options for finding a place to live. We go to the city center, enter any house. There we find any apartment and quietly kill all the residents. They will be looking for them. But you don't mind a couple of corpses? Although you're almost a corpse yourself, so you're indifferent to these guys. Second option. I rob an ATM and we rent a flat for a month. Where are we going to spend the night today? And that's the right question. Well, I'm not used to living in someone else's living space. And ta-da-da. The third option. We move slightly to the side and I create a house and cover it with protection. If we decide to hide from our opponents, then my protection will be better than Matto's. How long will it take you to build it? Pfft. Less than 2 hours. And no one will notice? Nobody. Especially you. I speed up a little and hit Korea in the neck. Oops. He didn't pass out. What kind of problematic person is this? I had to knock the guy out with a spell. Physically influencing him is useless. I won't bother. He threw the master over his shoulder and jumped off to look for a suitable place. How long has it been since I last walked the upper tracks? 25 years. No way. Where can I set up a little house for myself so that no one asks stupid questions like why does no one go there? That's right. In the Central Park. I reached a small man-made forest in the Central Park, went a little deeper and threw Korea on the ground. I should not hold him in my arms the entire period of work. I am not a horse. And he is not a knight. I will tell you a secret. What should I put? Why not? As one king said, find that, I don't know what. And so on and so forth. So I'll whip up a Fidelius and let them look for our hut, even for all eternity. Very simple protection. There are theories that she is playing with reality, but that's bullshit. Simple mental magic. It's just that everyone forgets at once about the house that already existed, and if the house was on the maps, it works like an anti-magic spell. No one can catch a glimpse of the necessary building on the map. This is if you set the protection to the maximum. And by default, you remember what's inside the house, what it looked like, but you don't remember where it is. And minimal protection. You remember where the house is, how to get there, its address. In extreme cases, you just lose it on the path to the door of the house. A kind of economical Fidelius. There was one like this on the Potter's house. At least before I was thrown into the interworld chaos. Without a large mana bank or at least a small source, I won't be able to set the Fidelius protection to maximum. And if I do, I'll have to sit here. So it's decided. We place the standard golden mean on the area of 50 Fidelius squares and build a house. Casting the Fidelius charm is very simple in essence, but difficult to perform. It takes too long to wave the wand and concentrate on the weaving. But since I don't have a wand, by the way, why don't I have one? I had to tinker with it for over half an hour. The damn spell failed twice. And the mana wasted was a pittance. I decided not to bother with the building. I just cut down all the trees in the Fidelius square and grew a house out of the stumps. Not an elven tree house, but not bad either. Now let's drag more stones from the soil into the house and let's create. Why do I need stones? For transfiguration. All the trees I just cut down are still alive. They still have their own energy that prevents me from working. Why waste extra mana if you can use a standard stone? And you need to concentrate less if you work with only one material. It's almost like working with custom statues. If you rivet 100 from granite, then you get used to the material and concentrate less on working with small details and do them correctly out of habit. Here too, magicians, and not pathetic wizards, must combine exact science and a flight of fantasy. But this is already transmutation, in which I could not reach great heights. That's all. The work was not difficult. Just quickly sketch out in your mind the framework of the formula for changing a stone into 3 different materials and you can start working. I made myself a regular room with a connected study, a large table, a bed, a soft chair on wheels and a wardrobe. Why do I need a wardrobe if I can change my clothes at will? What a stupid question. And where should I hide the corpses? Well, now it's clear that the question is stupid. Ahem. Have I gotten too into the mad genius scientist persona and often get lost in lectures? No, I haven't heard. We have Korea's room next. I decided not to come up with anything new with his room. I made a standard room with soft walls, similar to those in the madhouse. I didn't even make him a crib. Okay, Japanese, they always sleep on the floor anyway. Even in my home world, only zealous connoisseurs of tradition slept on a futon. I'll tell you a secret, total masochism. When the room was completely ready, I decided to make a bathroom. There I put a toilet, a wash basin, and a shower. Why a shower and not a bath? Am I going to sit in the same bath that Korea sat in? He has worms. Well, I'm a little squeamish too. It was easy to deal with water and its disposal. Why bother if everything was invented long ago? And as funny as it may sound, it wasn't invented by magicians. Shinobi are more adapted to life in the field. Here I am, I put the seal I needed with cold and hot water on the taps and connected the mixer to them. But the disposal took place with the help of a stationary escuro. All that's left is to find some booze and some snacks, and this will be the hut of the year. It's a pity that I don't suffer from alcoholism, and I don't need to eat. But I do need to eat carry. What kind of problematic individual is this? He needs to live somewhere and he wants to eat, and this idiot also wants to give the grail to an old man. Oh well, we've trained people like him. I must remember to do something nasty to the other craftsmen while I go shopping. Stop. I never got around to seeing what I looked like. With a wave of his hand, he created a mirror in front of himself and thought, where did I manage to find such strong mushrooms? Why did I decide that I was hallucinating? So I myself don't understand why I look like a bleached Uchiha. What the? I only have Yukikov's eyes. And they are already cooler than the Uchiha device. But I've seen this face somewhere too. Kagami Uchiha. I think I stole his grandchildren's eyes. But still. Why did I start to look so much like a member of the Uchiha clan? And you can't do any research, I'm just a projection of an aura. My body is somewhere in chaos. Maybe I raised my level by changing my body in vain? There is too little left in me of what I had from birth. I can't even use bones. If you think about it, my strongest attribute has always been my eyes. They have changed my energy quite a bit. I received the same gift for darkness with the help of my eyes. Maybe my body, aura, and the rest of the soul shells are striving for the ideal encrypted in the eyes? But I am sure that Rikudo could not help but limit the children of his eldest son. It even seems to me that he hated his firstborn. He put too many spokes in the wheels of the Uchiha clan. I will need to fully check my body and soul for various limiters. If I do not even notice the limiters of the creator, then I will definitely notice the signature of a person like Rikudo. Everyone reveres him as a genius of all times, but no one thought that he did everything by sheer force. Also sealing the tentails. Just compare how much the art of handling chakra has advanced if Obito was able to fully seal this monster in himself. And by all accounts, the 10 tails during Kagaya's time had as much chakra as the 9 tails before Minato's division. And he had no scientific basis. I'll find these limiters and break them. Maybe I'll even be able to upgrade my Zeniki again. Where was I? Ah. My appearance. Well, I'm the spitting image of a bleached Kagami Uchiha in Madara's outfit at its maximum. It's stylish, I tell you. But you can't walk down the street in this. How can I change my face so that I am not considered a gaijin, but but also not be as scary as a standard Japanese person. Although Uchiha's mug is the standard of Japanese standard beauty, it would be too obvious to walk around and show off your mug. If you do something nasty, do it in everything. What did Gilgamesh look like there? A golden-haired, red-eyed, arrogant bully? That's what we'll look like. Maybe he should rob a couple of banks too? So that his life doesn't seem like honey? No, too small. I decided not to bother with clothes, standard black jeans and a white shirt, over which I put on a light jacket. This is approximately how he dressed in the future. I won't describe my purchases in the store, but I found a piece of paper with a number and a lipstick mark in my shopping bag. Honestly, where is that scary saleswoman reaching for? It's not her face to be with such an imposing man. Am I that into the role? That's all I need. I need to quickly finish this nasty thing and come back. And the nastiness I have in mind is truly spectacular. I decided to turn one of the city parks into a forest with man-eating plants. Cool. Really? Maybe we should postpone it a bit? I wouldn't want to become target number 1 in this war. Wow. I still have this cool thing called self-preservation instinct. So what to do now? I'll probably start nagging Korea and we'll wait for the war to start. I'll send a clone to the church. Let him sit and keep watch. Maybe they won't even notice him. Where were we? Exactly. I wanted to feed Korea. Well, hold on, pork. The next stop on our train is the master's stomach. 266:15 until the end of the Grail War. Commentary on Chapter 2. Temporary Shelter. https://yachty.sk/a/301j6gon3rs89 Chapter 3. Priorities set. 2 days have passed since my call-up. Nothing remarkable happened. It was too quiet, too quiet. If I hadn't sensed the sources of 2 more servants, I would have thought that we had slept through the Grail War. Funny, isn't it? But it all turned out to be banal. These stupid idiots are in no hurry. Of course, I understand that the last servant has not yet been summoned, but if in the week since the appearance of command spells, no one has deigned to check their hand or perform the ritual, then this is either an untrained magician, or just a moron. Although there may be a moment with a duplicate call. To put it simply, the servant you wanted to summon has already been chosen. And all this time I was looking after Korea. Sounds creepy to me. But it is a fact. All care was limited to simple moral support, light pain relief, and asking Korea about his own story. If in the canon he was an idealist who wanted to help the girl, then in real life everything was very different. The guy was simply in love with the woman who is the wife of the master of the Tosaka family in this Grail War. And no matter how funny it may look, Korea himself let the girl slip out of his hands. Aoi turned out to be a standard purchased whore. She didn't love anyone. Not Mado, not Tosaka, Nopally. The only things that mattered to her were her social status and the opportunity to push her child into a strong magical family. She herself, although she had all the makings of becoming a strong sorceress, but who would train a beggar with no family? So she was looking for one with a hairy arm. Only Korea was a complete idiot. His father forbade him to communicate with Aoi, let alone bring up the topic of marriage. Misalliances. But this idiot decided to correct their unequal position in society and left the family with a scandal. Zoken is also good, he merged too much with his swarm and forgot how to think with his brain instead of his spinal cord. Who stopped him from throwing Korea over his knees and beating the nonsense out of him with rods? If words didn't get it, then it should get through the ass. Teenagers, they are such teenagers, they only understand strength. And as soon as Korea left the Metu clan, Aoi lost interest in him. Who needs an untrained mage without a clan, money, and living space? So she gently dipped him in Dermetso and began to hang on Tosaka. Only Korea turned out to be a standard blockhead. If he had participated in the Grail War 10 years ago, which didn't exist at that time, he would have become a standard OESH. You had to think of it to come to this, bad woman to babysit children. They sent him away softly, he didn't get the hint. They dipped him in the mud, but the guy was used to being mud and didn't even notice the new piece of manure on his face. He was even beaten up a couple of times by Tosaka himself, but he blamed it all on the man's jealousy and didn't pay any attention to him. Can you imagine how much of a wood craftsman I got? And the fun begins with the introduction of madder worms. All the romantic nonsense immediately flew out of my head, my brain was cured of pink snot, even logic kicked in a bit. What prevented Zoken from doing it right away? I don't believe for a second that this old fart can't cure the boy. But this alternatively gifted individual managed not to even notice the last chance given to him. This guy is incredibly stupid. The old man noticed that he had become very attached to the Tosaka children and decided to play on his son's weaknesses. This was a great chance to return to the family, lie on his knees for a week in front of his dad and start studying magic and raising the girl as his daughter and heir. But no. You need to show your independence and disdain for magical births. Of course I understand, everything is going wrong with the birth, but why so radically? You are not 16 anymore. Over 20. And you have no living space, no education, no decent job. And you still squeeze contempt out of yourself. Well, what can you expect from him? Maybe we should set up Korea and when he dies we can look for another master? I'm being stupid. They're all brainless here. So what should I do? At first I wanted to kill Zoken and his eldest son, then Korea could become the legal heir and have the opportunity to raise Sakura. But there is always a but. What kind of a child caregiver and holder of large sums and shares is he? They'll all rip him off, fleece him like an aspen tree. Then they'll drag out a miserable existence on the street together with Sakura. Although, why should I do anything about it? I only need to get the Grail, not solve other people's problems. I'll cure him, kill Zoken and Tosaka and his older brother. That will solve his starting problems. Legally, he will receive the entire inheritance. I don't believe that such a conservative person as Zoken has a will. He will receive guardianship of Sakura, and her mother, a good woman, will crawl to him to seek consolation and money for living. And then she will take him in an iron fist and will not allow him to plunder the entire inheritance. She will not spend her own and her daughter's money. And if he is not a complete fool, how sad that he is a complete fool in every sense, then life will not be bad and wishes will come true. Everyone is happy and I have the Grail. I kick the door open and watch Korea, who has already decided to attack me with his flies. Korea, how many times do I have to tell you, don't attack me? Here's what I'll tell you, my dear comrade. Should we cut off your hands? They'll lie in my refrigerator until the war starts, and then I'll sew them back on, they'll be better than new ones. Go ahead? Go ahead. No? I quickly move closer and hit him in the chin with my fist. Then remember it already. Maybe kick him? Don't attack me. Got it? The bastard doesn't answer. Well, there's definitely no way around assault. A light blow to the ribs should help my words reach his little brain. DHA. Well, that's Slavnenko. Our war started today, and you're throwing yourself at your only hope of living to old age. I have at most a month left. Did your dad tell you that? And is it true that you're both degenerates and have less brains than my favorite? And he himself admired one of my masterpieces. What can you do in the city before the war? That's right. Set up a bunch of traps, surveillance systems, and bribe a bunch of people for the same surveillance. It was all easy to do in one day. I went up to some thug, opened his brain with legilimency, and went looking for the professionals I needed. Why not use anyone? It's not very effective. Professionals don't lose their skills even under Imperio and will show much better results than even a person from the street who has been perfectly processed by mental magic and genjutsu. But I like good results, so I treated my new workers to the highest standard and put them on my payroll. I even pay them salaries. I stole that money anyway. So I got in touch with the guys. Professionals. They instantly bought the houses closest to the targets and hung a bunch of covert electronics on them. After all, magicians don't always keep up with progress. The best one was the laser sensor for removing vibrations from glass. There was no protection against it in the Tosaka estate and we already know all the plans. More precisely, to me, Korea is a complete zero in strategy and tactics. Does this idiot even know how to do anything? Hey Korea. Do you even know how to do anything? Dash. I don't get it. You can't do anything or you don't like to brag? I won't even mention your magical skills, you're a complete zero in magic. There's nothing to say about that, I'm a complete zero in local magic, at worst I can use a rune. How? You were able to create this house? This can only be done with magic. He walked smoothly towards Korea. Ow. And gave him a preventative slap on the wrist. Are you listening to me? I can't use local magic because I don't know it. That's the first thing. Secondly, I use a different type of magic. If you pump yourself with mana from the world, then send it along the semi-material channels originating in the seventh shell of the soul and passing through all 6 remaining ones. And then at each layer of the bush you can make adjustments to the spell. That's why they are not very stable for you, and learning is a very tedious and dangerous process. Especially for children. I use a completely different system. My magical body has a core and channels. Since the source of magic is personal to me and produces mana that suits me best, then my control over mana is much higher than yours. So it turns out, I create my mana, send it through my channels and create independent my magic. To put it simply, you draw mana from the world and create different physical phenomena with different manipulations, when I command the world with my personal power or change its laws in a certain area. My magic is weaker, but it is too different. Not like that. Your magic is stronger only in this world, in another there may be different laws or constants, and instead of a cool fireball there will be boom. And what's cool is that we will need to conduct an experiment. Drag different magicians through different realities, and if these idiots survive, extract new information from the mind. We will need to write it down. Korea. Can I write notes on your back? I can still buy a notebook, and I will be able to remember my plans from your scars. No. Cough. Your worms again. But I didn't waste my time. These worms unite with you throughout the entire volume of your soul, very harmoniously and cool. I tell you, if they weren't eating quietly, these are not parasites. As I thought at the very beginning, these are symbionts grown on your basis. A brilliant creation of a psycho. All the unpleasant consequences could have been easily neutralized. Cough cough So what was I talking about? Here. Since these worms are a part of you, in the magical sense of course, then if you hit them with a pain spell, they will stop eating and start suffering. Crucios. May the exorcists love you, you damn psycho spirit. And the boy feels better. If before he lay flat out for days, then after my little tricks, he recovers faster. Not exactly a cure, but if he uses magic, he won't die from the recoil. Well, they stopped eating you. What's better, long-term torture in a moderate mode or a couple of seconds of severe pain and the torture will end? But for wishing me to end up in the same bed with the church ministers, I'll still remember you. You know I hate them. Where from? You didn't tell me anything about yourself. You only mentioned that you're from another world. That's all. Really? My mistake. And a strong one at that. As master, I should give orders, and I don't know anything about you. I'm going to give you orders now. You won't get out of this hospital bed again. No need. Korea, let's be honest with you. You are a non-entity, incapable of waging war or complex intrigues. If we take the army system of usefulness and ranks, then you are a private who has not completed training. At that time, I managed to fight in 2 wars. In one, as a frontline fighter, in the second as a politician manipulator. I have more experience and brains. Once we win the war, you can do whatever you want, but now we have no time for conventions and measures with our genitals. It is immediately clear that I have more. Yes. Did you see? A joke? Yeah. Even though I got the madness under control, I can't control such trifles. I'll be Petrosian of the Fourth Grail War. I feel like crying. Who is Petrosian? Huh? One of the comedians, one of the worlds. Oh no. And have you been to many worlds? If we don't take into account various conventions, then in 3. This is the fourth. And what is your wish? I want to go to the previous world. I accidentally got into a spatial anomaly when I was running away from the biblical God. KKHKA. From whom? From God. At the moment, I really don't want the biblical God from my world and yours to be one being. After the destruction of London, Moscow, and Rome, this comrade can come up with a lot of tortures for me. Although he will hardly be able to catch me. The Avatar won't have enough strength and won't be able to throw meat at me. I really hope so. I really don't like the actions of the Church of this world. They screwed the Association of Mages in the 19th century very nicely. Now the behavior of the mages of this world coincides with the habits of the aristocrats from mine, but we had our own world. Independent. Yes, if we separated completely, we would have to force people to work in the fields and our civilization would slide to the level of the 16th century. But here they have no place to run. The mages of this world are complete idiots. I am simply speechless. They never cared about their world. They don't give a damn about it. For them, the world is a starting resource, a new location in the game. Even the elimination of various disasters by the Mage Association happens because if the churchmen do it, these fanatics will find something to find fault with and will try to kill the entire family of mages. Yeah. The entire family, the clan. While the mages worked separately, the church built up its strength. According to my calculations, if a war starts, the fanatics will win. I settled on the magicians. For a mage, only two things are important, to reach Akasha or to transfer all knowledge and chains into the mark in order to help the heir in the search for Akasha. I'm not interested in this. Although I can only get knowledge about moving between worlds here from Akasha, users of different true magic will send me away. Even if I have enough strength to kill them, it's not a fact that they will be more talkative when resurrected. But I won't be able to hold them back. Our approaches to magic are too different and each of us has enough tricks for a whole 3-volume book, if you write down only the names. I only need knowledge about portals. I'm not interested in getting all the knowledge on a platter. It will be too simple, no flight of fancy, no mistakes, no new random discoveries. How can you live knowing everything? BRR. So why did I come? Exactly. The last servant has been summoned. Send the familiar to the church, we are waiting for the announcement of the beginning of the war. You already have the church under surveillance. Why should I waste my energy on a familiar? How hard it is with stupid people. You won't understand, Korea. And as for the question, the surveillance is not carried out in ways that are standard for your world. There is a chance that it will not be noticed. And if they are noticed, then the presence of your familiar will slightly divert suspicion from us. Of course, not everything will be clean and smooth, but there is an opportunity to hear about the machinations of the church. You knew that one of the masters, a former church executioner, is the son of a war judge and, like a cherry on the cake, a student of Tosaka. How many machinations can be pulled off in such a situation? This Kirai can bend his back to Tosaka, under various agreements, and then stab him in the back. Or Tosaka can lie under the church. I'll be honest with you, he is a very arrogant man, he himself has not achieved anything, he has not replenished the knowledge of the 7 in the mark, he is below average in magic circuits. All he has is the mark and the ego. He may not even pay attention to the various swarms that we will arrange, pride will not allow him to follow our actions. Or that the lesser grail isn't a living being? Only the church and 3 families, the Matu, the Eitzburns, and the Tosoka, know about this. Why didn't your father tell you? Don't know. But I know. He didn't even hope to win this round of the war. And the oath you signed can be easily bypassed. If you didn't have worms in you, it would be beautiful. Can you remove them? How long have I been waiting for this question? Now I need to gently hint to him about the Grail. Korea. Why do you need the Grail? I promised to save Sakura. And? You can go and kill the old man right now. Then you can just take custody of her. Is that possible? You were called for the war, so you can't be used for that. Who told you that? But you know what the catch is? I can cure you and save Sakura, but there are a couple of problems. What? If you can cure me and save the girl, then do it. And why do I need this? I don't care about the former Tosaka. And I don't care about you, you'll live to see the end of the war, and then it's not my problem. Command spells. I can order you. And here lies the catch. As a berserker, I have great resistance to your orders, and my artifact also protects my mind from the influence of command spells, and, the final chord in this matter, I have been able to practice mind protection since childhood. You will spend all the command spells with one order, and it is not even a fact that I will fulfill this order. And if I do, I will not kill you. Are you ready for this? I will order you to save Sakura. And I don't need more than that. I'm already ready to die. And I'll kill her. I'll save her from Zoken and kill her. You can't stop me. Kariya, who had been holding me by the chest the whole time, lowered his hands and fell to his knees. Zoken promised to let Sakura go if I gave him the grail. Huh. Wasn't it fate to wish for Zoken's death? Contract. You know what, Kariya? Why would you give the grail to Zoken if I can grant your wishes? All you have to do is listen to me. And you won't be able to give him the grail if the old man dies. I would have put a slave mark on you and Juin. But sadly, I already feel that the grail will simply disembody me. I will have to hold it by the balls with persuasion. Agreed. I'll do anything if you save Sakura. And he doesn't care about his health. It won't be possible to save Sakura until you're completely cured. The old man can recycle you and the chains and resurrect from the worms in your body. The same can be done with Sakura's worms. Everything must be done slowly. You will obey me, right, Kariya? Yes. If you can save Sakura, then I will obey. It's not hard to save her, the main thing is to do it in time. We need to kill Tosaka first. What does he have to do with it? He refused her. He refused, so he can take you back. You can't imagine how much power and knowledge he will gain by taking Sakura under his control. So we need to kill Tosaka first, then save and cure Sakura, cure you and kill Zoken. Then you will be free. And you just follow my orders during the war. Nothing complicated. Agree. That's great. Commentary on Chapter 3. Priorities set. People. You can praise the man with the nickname Doctor Who. The sale was ready 2 days ago, but I forgot about it. More precisely, I didn't forget, but thought that I had posted it. But I was unlucky and the chapter wasn't published. It seems I did it during technical work and it turned out the way it turned out. Chapter 4. The calm before the storm. Rejoice, O despised one. On this wonderful day I was able to witness the battle between the King of Heroes and the assassin. What? Isn't it too early? A cheap production. These churchmen have relaxed their buns too much. You see, magicians are simple degenerates, no strength, no brains. And the assassin master is hidden and finding surveillance was his guarantee of life. Ugh. Where I got paranoid, there are thousands of such professionals. So an average chunin. It was necessary to think of openly showing his numbers, within the walls of the church. Every self-respecting magician should wipe his ass with the opinion of the sanctimonious. And Tosaka lived up to my expectations, he simply could not help but brag about his new toy. Who shouts so loudly about his nickname? Although this piece of pride cannot help but praise himself. A very funny freak, I tell you. He ruled a piece of land the size of Japan, and shouts that everything in this world is his. You're overreacting to him. He irritates me. But you can play on his pride. People like him live only for themselves. He's a servant, even worse than me. I'm lucky I came across you and not Tosaka, that one, he definitely wouldn't have survived meeting me. But I'll tell you a secret, your death is not the end of my participation in the war, but you are understandable and convenient to me, so you'll live well as long as you behave decently. Now if you betray me, I won't envy you. I lived more than a quarter of a century as part of the Black Clan. Torture was one of our specialties. I'm not going to betray you. Well, Kariya. The thoughts were already there. You can't hide anything from me. But don't worry, just know that if we win the Grail, we'll get a lot. The main thing is don't think about Akashi, you have nothing to do there. And I have nothing to do there. What is Akashi? Even I know about the Akashic Library. For us, it was just a fairy tale. Well, listen. Akash, a place that is part of the spiral, is where all knowledge is stored. If you explain it based on how the world works, then when a soul gets into the spiral, pieces are torn off until the core of the soul is left completely, so to speak, naked. And when the soul is brazenly torn apart, all the pieces are put into different boxes, so to speak. Akash is a place where the knowledge of all deceased beings of the multiverse is stored. But I'll tell you a secret, the spiral is not omnipotent. It often happens that part of the soul shells are not completely torn off. Here's an example. When I was born, I still had the memory of my previous reincarnation. And what does that mean? That's right. It means that the unique knowledge that my soul could have had in that circle did not get into Akash. And the desire to go there itself is not very reasonable. I can assure you, any creature that has reached a decent level of power will easily retain its memory and personality in the spiral. Especially if this creature crawled from the depths of the pyramid of power. For example, your mages, in 10 generations can gain the required number of chains to be on the same level as heroic souls. But where are these super mages? They are all just aristocratic no-smackers. All heroic souls do not have marks. They can have excellent heredity, be relatives of gods. Can get their starting power from artifacts. Become famous for battles, flooding the battlefield with bloody seas. Become famous for great skill, in any direction. The most important thing for a heroic soul is the ability to excite the mind and evoke vivid feelings in the hearts of people. Be it fear or awe, respect or hatred, any personality that is the basis of a heroic soul awakens strong emotions. You got confused with your explanation about Akasha. I haven't lost my way. This knowledge is very important for any magician. Even for someone like you. A strong magician, when he doesn't hide, also evokes emotions. All this is determined by the influence on the world itself. Do you know what gravity and magnetic field theory are? Second-year physics course in high school. I passed by. So, the more power a magician has, the more mass he has for the world. Even if his personality is too unpleasant, weaker people will be drawn to him. Both the energetic and psychological aspects can be involved here. Do you understand why I mentioned gravity? Now I can explain what magnets have to do with it. In simple terms, all ordinary and extraordinary people are charged positively. Whether you are a misanthrope, a pessimist, or a maniac, they are generally too positively charged. These individuals who kill for fun, you are charged positively. Only by temporarily tuning your emotions and energy can you get a negative charge. Or have energy that is very alien to society. Or psychological illnesses that cause emotional instability or lead to states of black depression. So, a strong magician can twist you simply with his desire and presence. I can't do that. I have been studying this science for too long. It is, I am not ashamed of this word, a subtle art. I have more reliable means to spend decades learning all the subtleties. It is precisely this ability to control others that can serve as an indicator of will. The more acute feelings a being can evoke in another being, the greater the chance of not dying completely. As René Descartes said, while I think, I exist. So any strong magician has nothing to do in Akasha. What was this whole lecture for? It's hard to deal with intelligent beings who aren't quite intelligent. I'll explain it to you in detail. Knowledge can give you the opportunity to solve any problem. Do you agree? Don't flap your stupidity around like that, it'll fall off. Ahem. Now even more specifically. You know what literature you should be looking for, but you were left to sit alone in a huge library that isn't sorted at all. Will you be able to find the one and only book among billions of books before you die of old age? And I can't either. So it's easier to do research. Some people even go into the Akasha for the truth, in order to then bring it to the masses. That's the stupidest thing a magician can do. The truth. It's individual for everyone, you need to look for it inside yourself. Just don't think of ripping your belly open. Well. And what did you understand from this lecture? Don't go close to strong creatures and don't think about Akashi, I won't get anything in this place anyway. Not life, but a complete scam. Okay, even though you are a log, at least you are not rotten. To eat. I may be a heroic soul, but I still want to eat like a living person. I've never had any cooking talent. Making a potion? A piece of cake. But my skills don't allow me to do anything more complicated than boil water and cook dumplings. I could even start drawing a circle to summon a junior spirit of the hearth. And that won't work, they need to be trained for 5 years before these surrogate house elves can be useful. So I decided not to solve the issue in the kitchen and went for pizza. And you know? It was a surprise for me to get into the cannon before the battle at the docks. Or maybe not canon. You never know, I don't know how often Rin goes to the park with her mother. I even accepted my appearance, which I had during my life in England. A couple of hand movements, and instead of a boyish outfit, I had a white tailcoat with a black shirt and a red tie. And of course, I didn't forget to transmute myself with snow-white gloves and a white bowler hat, 1.5 palms high. Well, and a cane with a top in the form of a grinning grimace's head. The girl had just run away from her mother when I decided to approach. Good evening. It wasn't worth coming from behind, the poor woman got scared and jumped slightly. Oh, come on. Miss Tosaka, you need to be more careful. What kind of example are you setting for your daughter? Sorry. You scared me. You know my name, maybe you could introduce yourself? I wanted to get to that. Nice to meet you, I'm Phineas Arcturus Black. You didn't just come up to me, did you? Of course. I am very disappointed in your husband. Nobody has the right to talk about my husband like that. Oh my God. She tries to sound cold, like a hereditary aristocrat. Should I laugh or cry? You are very much mistaken about this. Anyone can be disappointed, and the subject of disappointment can be very multifaceted. There are even people who are disappointed in life. Don't try to pull the wool over my eyes. She lost her temper. Who makes such an angry face on a playground? And it's better not to hiss here. Ah. Well, at my age, it's not shameful to get into philosophy. After all, I'm in my 50s. The woman grimaced as if she had chewed a lemon. I'm telling you, she's a bitch. Young man, you look even younger than me, have some respect and don't lie to a woman's face. How arrogant you are, Tosaka. Even you, a slob from the street, pull your dirty nose too high. The woman's face was too distorted in a grimace of anger. You. Mom. Who is this? But she didn't notice her daughter. What a lively girl. I'm a friend of Uncle Korea's. He was too ill to come. AAA. I feel sorry for him. He's kind. Don't worry, the disease is dangerous, but he received treatment from a specialist. And I am a very good specialist. After all, our family has been treating magical illnesses for thousands of years. So you're a magician. You don't look it. Why? You're not scary. All magicians, except Dad, are scary. Do you want me to prove it? I thought to interrupt our conversation, but the poor thing sits and sweats. I was too lazy to use magic on her. My KI is enough for her. And even then, a measly couple of % of the maximum pressure already brought her to the brink of losing consciousness. Light magic is not my strong point. But I will show you a spell that any mage who has not lost his humanity can perform. Watch carefully. Expecto Patronum. Yes, a regular Patronus. It's hard for me to use this section of magic, but the Patronus is tuned to positive emotions, and I have plenty of good memories. When it comes to the shape of the Patronus, it does express some aspects of the personality. But there are many subtleties. For example, all blacks have a Patronus in the form of a dog. And since I had been the shepherd of our family for a long time, I was not surprised to see a German shepherd. The dog, on his ghostly legs, approached the girl and pressed his nose into the child's palm. Don't be afraid. Stroke it. She calmed down a little and carefully began to stroke my keeper. You have no idea how much effort I poured into this dog. And all for the sake of temporary materiality. Well, how is it? Now do you believe that I am a magician? and Rin strokes the dog in fascination. After all, the bright guardian spirit spreads peace and pleasant emotions. She has hardly seen similar magic. Huh? We can't do magic openly. Don't worry. You see. I point my finger at the light haze. This is a barrier that prevents non-mages from seeing it. Cool. What kind of spirit is this? I haven't read about any. They're all evil. Why so categorical? Spirits cannot be evil, they are only a reflection of the essence of people. If people were kinder, then the spirits would be kinder. And you are observing the guardian spirit. It feeds on magic and reflects the emotions that the magician has put into it. Where I come from, strong magicians, instead of rocking children and reading fairy tales, call upon such a spirit, which gives children warmth and protects their peace at night. But the most important thing is that any magician can call upon it. Everyone has the spirit, because it is a reflection of all that is good in a person. Have you remembered the litany? She shook her head several times. What a pity that arrogance had already settled in her soul. When you become older and stronger, when life decides to test your strength, remember your happiest moment in life and wish for it strongly, then your guardian spirit will answer the call and show itself. Don't be afraid if at first it turns out to be just a silver haze, it will simply show you that you are not yet ready to meet him. And most importantly, the girl listened to me with fascination, and when I raised my voice slightly solemnly, she calmed down and began to listen even more attentively. Don't forget the litany. I won't forget. Well done. Then you will fulfill my little request? If it doesn't harm the Tosaka family. Ha ha ha. Such a small, but already responsible girl. I'm not little. Tell your dad that Berserker sent him his regards. Tuuu. It's not difficult. Then I can go home. Would you like to say a few words to Korea? Let him get well. I'll pass it on. Well then, I'm off. With a wave of his hand, he dispelled the anti-Muggle barrier and headed towards the center of town. Rin's words reached my back. Goodbye. He turned around and waved his hand a couple of times. When I had taken a few steps, I looked at the sunset and answered for myself. I hope we won't see each other again. There is no place for children in war. With my experience in two worlds, I clearly understand this. Commentary on Chapter 4. The Calm Before the Storm. https://disc.yandex.ru/301j6gon3rs89 Chapter 5. Consequences. If my calculations are correct, the first gathering of servants will take place next night. Almost all the servants will gather there and we need to figure out how to use it. The fight itself won't be very profitable, there are too many opponents. And it's not a fact that I'll be able to take them all down. If Gilgamesh weren't there, we could have had a great time. What do I care about another destroyed Muggle city? There are enough of them as anything that doesn't drown in an ice hole. But my favorite bastard will definitely be present at that gathering. It's his nature to show up in a place where at least someone will shout king. Just like a dog at the command to heal, honestly. Against the king of heroes, I have a high chance of winning. No matter how you look at it, my defensive abilities are too strong and specific. They are specific in that I have defense methods based on physical laws, chakra constructs, and magical defenses. Although I will not be able to use all my abilities at once, unless through the Rinnegan, but this is my fantasy and using it at the very beginning at full capacity is not the best solution, but switching will not be difficult. As for attacking abilities, I do not like to admit that I have any. Everything is either too strong and massive or, on the contrary, has too narrow a radius of destruction. All attacks on chakra will simply roll out a large territory, and what other than the abilities of the Rinnegan, do I have a long-range one? I am completely sharpened as a fighter of close and medium range. The ability to take in magic is generally questionable. Although my magic works to the fullest, I do not know the level of the local craftsman. My master is a complete zero in magic, focusing on him is the last thing I will do in this life. But even in such a not very pleasant situation, there are very practical solutions. Blood magic. In this body, I can use it to the fullest. Create a sea of blood? Why not? The whole charm of this form is the ability to completely restore your body in the shortest possible time, when exposed to healing practices on your body. Why did I write healing practices? There are too many ways to heal: blood magic, sorcerer spell, healing magic based on neutral mana, life magic, some specific practices in death magic, chimerology, iron and jutsu, and so you can find an infinite number of ways to raise your body to a vertical position. The same Korea worms heal him quite well. If they didn't do it, the guy would have died long ago, so I can use blood magic quite well. There are also downsides to this opportunity, which is why I won't use it. Leave my mage blood. I'm not a complete idiot. It's not difficult even for an ordinary person to create an organic poison based on blood. And even if I were 1,000 times the best doctor, my immune system would not resist the infection. And magicians are still those creatures and innovators. I can attach magical, spiritual, auric and hundreds of other varieties of parasites to this poison. And if it is just a weak ignoramus, then just do minor manipulations with blood. He is able to slightly change one of the energetic imprints of my blood, which can hit at the energy level. And if you remember, 2 purebred wizards with a shitload of ancestors are participating in this war, who definitely thought of creating a poison based on blood and left this knowledge in the mark. Or Old Man Matto, who can create heavenly heaps for me by growing parasites based on my blood. Let's draw conclusions. Blood magic is going to hell. Use dark magic? To be honest, I'm scared. I don't know how it will behave. If with minor manipulations it acts within predictable limits, then if I scoop up a little more, it hits my pseudo-body very hard. It feels like it has strict regulations in the laws of the world. More precisely, it is not so. It must be used either by completely living people or by spirits of this higher element. What else is left of magic? I've been playing around with experiments too much. We've come to this. I don't have enough cool gadgets. It's like well-fed Naruto, possible in theory, but unrealistic in practice. And with the chakra, too, not everything is too clear. The main component of chakra, yang, or prana. At that time, I can't have prana, not even in theory. I'm a fucking projection. In the same theory, I can only use magic, but it's the other way around. I feel chakra 100%. And the whitened body gives soft hints to one not small fact. Glory to my warm underpants, the author is cold and he prays for warm clothes. I can carry out a full check even on my knee, even in such a specific condition. It would have been better, of course, to start checking my carcass, back in the beginning, but I had enough brains not to do it in that state. My mind was too unstable. I could have attached 2 more hands to myself, because it would have been so convenient to eat in front of the TV. In one hand you hold a plate, in the other a fork or spoon, in the third the TV remote, and in the fourth a piece of bread. Beauty, but there were also a couple of ideas from the category of crazy brilliant. I remembered them. I will need to think about them and implement them. There will be no cool rune circles. You can go your separate ways. I'm serious. There will be no apocalypse, no runic constructs, not even cool howling spells. And no cool techniques either. And we will have a simple meditation. As funny as it may be, I just need to do some meditation now. That way I can fully scan all my energy channels, which even in the past world began to slightly influence each other, interfering, and determine the most optimal options for using my capabilities. Duh. Sitting in one position for more than 20 hours was not very comfortable for me. And now we can draw conclusions that are not bad. Not convenient, but not bad. As always, there is no time when you need it. I have a similar situation. But I don't have time for the banal end of the consequences of the last experiment. Even the consequences are pleasant and useful, but there is always a but. It's time to get used to the fact that nothing in life can be perfect. As I suspected, my whitening is due to a high coincidence with the creator of the ninshu on an energetic level. I fulfilled a couple of conditions that are difficult to fulfill without belonging to the Uchiha and Senju clans. As I have long determined, these 2 clans were either squibs or weak mages, and therefore did not develop their abilities in the field of magic, with high chakra abilities and a too dangerous lifestyle. At the beginning, they did not have time to waste on weak abilities, and later they either ossified in their ignorance, and magic must be developed from childhood. Only those who were carriers of the Uzumaki genes or victims of experiments by very cool scientists like Orochimaru-san could survive the creation of the source of magic in the body and the germination of the main channels. But I survived the formation only from the genes of the Uchiha clan. The second stage of evolution should have been the change of the body by the Senju gene. So I would have received the branching of the mana channels in the aura layer of the soul and given my chakra the property of water and earth, as well as the ability to mokutan. It's just that everything always goes wrong for me. It was often said that all clans are divided into two types, those that came from Kagaya and clans with a genome obtained from different hereditary mutations. So I confirmed that the Hozuki clan came from Rakudo, or were related to Senju. It is too suspicious that only the Hozuki, like the Senju, can partially and completely have the abilities of elementals. And if this theory is correct, then the mana channels in my aura, which were formed from the introduction of a mutagen based on the Hozuki genome into my gene, should be similar to those that were formed in the Senju aura. I also strongly stimulated my two sources with a mixture of energies, which Naruto's chakra turned into. Only life magic can grow, and I lost almost 20 years ago. I'm talking about Kakashi. Only this section of magic could find something to cling to. And the chakra accelerated the entire healing process, that's why it happened so quickly. And with the damned mark, I created a system of channels that tied this whole mess into a knot. It turned out stupidly, but now I have no problems in terms of energy, not counting the inability to use dark magic, which was due to external limitations. After all of the above, there is only one thing I can say: I am so f-king lucky. If I didn't have a source of magic at hand, I would become a simple meatball. I would just curl up into a meaty bundle. Well, the icing on the cake is that I can now use Mokutan. And his level is not lower than that of the first Hokage. Only the level expressed in the loss of chakra to obtain it and the content of life magic in the chakra. Control over this genome, I do not have ma. It's just that the feeling of inadequacy gnaws at me from the inside. I know I need something. Something. But what I don't know. There is hope that I will be able to understand what I am missing when I get my body back. Maybe I'm missing a body? I don't know. Honestly. Enough talk about complicated and useless things. I'm not going to get a body yet. But now there's a good reason to slightly delay the war, let all my spiritual shells settle down, and then I'll adjust the body to suit them. I looked out the window and didn't quite get the joke. It's 8 o'clock in the evening, but it's dark outside. Not very well, I tell you. Who knows what's going on in this damn town? Paradoxically, cursed not by God, but by certain, bad people. And the funniest thing is, only the Einsburns thought of not living in this city. Zoken might not have known the intricacies of pumping mana out of everything within 20 kilometers from the place where the highest grail is located. The Tosaka were just thieves who stole someone's mark, I remember from whom, but the main character doesn't remember, so they received spells and additional chains for their family, but the mark does not carry knowledge. It would have turned out to be too complex a construct. And if someone had managed to pull this off, they would have long ago written their personality into this mark and would have been reborn in their descendants when they were marked. Mato has a very specific way of transmitting the mark, because it stores at least part of the information. But it is this piece of crawling parasites that came closest to the previous voiced version. If his family had not degenerated, he would have moved away from his younger relatives long ago. And here everything again rested on the sucking of mana. On the territory of this town, it is impossible to give birth to a strong magician. I would not be surprised if Tosaka spent a lot of time with his wife outside of Fuyuki, where they made children. Who also did not spend their first time in the city, and at 5 years old, the basis for a magician has already been formed in the body of a child, because a simple weak mana-saturated background will not greatly affect the development of a magician. Of course, the result will be better on a mana source, but this is poetry. And the result will not be too great without an altar, and it seems that they do not know how to attach sources of mana with blood to one clan and put a plug in the form of an altar, which transfers all the mana from the source for the benefit of the clan. But all this is small stuff compared to my plans, and my plans include visiting a fun civil war, which was planned for the dark time of day, which came very quickly. Korea. Bam. It looks like the poor guy fell to the floor in fright. Where was he anyway? After a short search, I realized one small truth. What kind of person are you? I can't even eat dry bread with you, I get wet from tears. I just can't decide whether I should cry from laughter or from grief. After all, not every master falls off the toilet from fright. My toilet broke from your scream. What did you do? Oops. It looks like controlling your suddenly increased affinity with wood can bring a few problems. The house is all wood. Control is weak on one ability. Be happy that your toilet fell apart and didn't grow sharp peaks. Now it got to him. Okay, enough of this nonsense. We have our first fight coming up. The first fight was between Assassin and Gilgamesh. How many times do I have to tell you that it was only to hide the Inquisitor in the bosom of the church? Imagine how big and scary a woman would have to be to fit a whole person in there? Not a funny joke. And it's true. But to be honest, the churchman's phrase doesn't sound any better. The only phrase worse is my boy from an old grandfather. And I start to shudder. Damn. When I think about it, I keep remembering one bearded sodomite. Have you already become a victim of pure love? I'll make such love for you now. I'll stick a seed in your ass, which will grow inside you and will grow into all your insides. Then little branches will crawl into your veins and arteries, causing hellish pain, reducing the ability to carry blood, and if you bother it hard enough, then this nasty thing will grow into your lungs and will transfer oxygen to your cells, piercing each cell with little needles. Oh my! I shouldn't have pressed him like that. Worms are cool, but he doesn't know how they work. Why are you shaking and hiding in a corner? That's pretty much how your worms work. I'll still have to grow a small plantation in you. And not to torture you, it will be a simple temporary solution to the problem with your attacks. If you haven't noticed, the worms have started gnawing at you less. Even when they start moving and should have already bitten off chunks, you don't feel pain. So, there is grass inside you grown on the basis of your blood, that's what they feed on now. As for me, it's an excellent addition to Matto's worms, there are no painful sensations, there are advantages from the worms. I could also make positive functions for the blood vine, but there is no time. But this is not enough for the grass system in your body to work properly, you either need to teach you to feed the entire plant system, or make the feeding autonomous, and this cannot be done in an hour of experiments. The idea is not bad, to create a full-fledged symbiont based on a plant. If you also steal the knowledge of Matto worms, it will be absolutely gorgeous. In theory, few directions can allow you to grow an arm in a couple of seconds in a living body. Well, that's at my level of strength. Growing an arm with blood magic in a couple of seconds is also possible, but you'll ruin half your prana and mana reserves. Too unprofitable. Enough talk. We're going to a fight. Although it's better for you to stay here, as a magician you're weak and as a fighter you're like a grenade made of shit, it stinks a lot and is of little use. Transformed into the original form. Well, that's the one I was in during the draft. Well, it's time to move out. Chapter 6 I got to the docks in mere minutes. I had nowhere to hurry, there were no signs of the beginning of the battle. If creatures like the servants from the Grail War had started the battle, there would have been a possibility of a rupture of space. Tearing the fabric of space is not difficult, you just need to know the required range of action, but working with space is incredibly difficult. It is almost impossible to work manually, so to speak. Too difficult. By means of runes, even a simple tear of space like apportation is already the work of an apprentice of runes or artifacturers. If you remember, Abito moved in space using the Sharingan, but there too it was closer to a simple tear of space, although more accurately. The only creature that could use space at the level I needed to return home was Kagaya. I am far from her, especially in terms of energy. No joke, the woman merged with the 10-tailed one. My chakra barely reaches the level of the weakest Biju. While I was thinking, I didn't forget to move my legs. When I reached the docks, I turned around and ran back to the city. What can you do while sitting on the roof and watching the perimeter? Especially if you are sure that you will not be noticed until you want it to be? So I decided that without popcorn the show would not be as enjoyable to my heart. In the store I decided not to show off, but just stole what I wanted. Why waste extra energy before the fight? I settled in a very convenient place. If my memory serves me right, Amiya will have a great view of all the participants in the battle from the elevator beam. I decided not to climb so high and went to the place opposite to where Master Lancer is located. But there is also a place to escape. Let's not consider ourselves the strongest and smartest. It is not yet known exactly what level everyone gathered here is at. While people were gathering, I decided to take up a phenomenon that interested me. This is an early darkening, too atypical. After half an hour, I could accurately answer the question, what the HCK is going on in this asshole of a world? And the answer was simple and logical. I myself have not encountered anything like this, but in the Black family library, there were mentions of similar incidents. Let me start by saying that this is not a common occurrence, or rather, it is not related to astronomy. Everything that is happening is a pure magical incident. The sun is not visible, for a simple reason: photons do not reach the city due to the emanations of the darkest call. The call of the creature from the very depths of the infernal planes, which is encouraging, the call is partial. Our cheerful priest also decided to join the game. Although he is probably getting ready. From all I can remember, the caster class is very vulnerable in direct combat, but plays very well defensively. There were even a couple of mentions of all the heroes and masters teaming up to smoke out one caster who sacrificed a huge number of people to strengthen his base. What kind of slow heroes did I get in the party? They can't even show up on time for the con. What? Connection. The connection was lost. The magical marriage we have established cannot be broken. Return. I must get Narcissa back. A sharp acceleration. And I grab the first person I come across. Summon, unholy resurrection. The letters began to spread across the asphalt. But the call does not go through. What? Can't be. Summoning is impossible only in two cases: the deceased has been forgotten and memories of him have been erased from papers, or the soul has gone to be reborn. But reincarnation in the world of Potteriana is only possible after at least 40 days. They couldn't forget She wrote a couple of books and often appeared in newspapers. There is another way. Murder with a sacred weapon. I won't be able to pull her soul out over such a long distance, even the Rinnegan won't help here. Creatures. How dare they? My C. Third person. On the asphalt, between the containers that were displayed at the docks, a man was crying on his knees. Not even a man, but a young man of 25 years of age. He looked at the sky, and bloody tears flowed from his eye sockets. The guy didn't pay attention to his surroundings. He was too deep within himself. An hour later, not far away, a fierce battle began. The sounds of the clash of excellent steel were clearly heard around the area. The young man would not have moved if his reflexes, ingrained in him by years of training, had not kicked in. There was a powerful blow nearby and sparks flew across the asphalt, which reached our hero. Yes, the guy was a hero. He stood out too much from the usual style of clothing and skin color of those around him. The passing discharge was what triggered the reflexes. When the guy looked around, he saw the battlefield. But he didn't pay attention to anything. His gaze was pinned to the blonde with pleasant features. She stood with her head slightly turned to take in everyone present. He couldn't see her eyes, but he didn't care about anything. He just went to meet her. Some uninteresting person was speaking on the pole. At the very first words, everyone stopped listening to him and simply concentrated, expecting an attack. Why listen to him? Such proud people as the one standing on the pole can only talk about their greatness. They don't have enough brains and attention for more. They can't pay attention to anything except their own face. Worthless. Our hero ignored him too. He ignored everyone, he was only concerned with the identity of the blonde girl. He took his first steps. But... How dare you, mad dog, ignore me? The proud man had no self-control. And his overinflated self-esteem gave him only one solution: attack. A golden ripple went across the space and from it, halfway, various weapons appeared. Enough to examine the murder weapons, no one received. They rushed at great speed towards our hero. Everyone noticed the sneaky attack from behind, except for the one being attacked. And he didn't need it. Almost black energy ribs appeared around him. Swords, spears, axes. All of this could not even scratch the protection. You dare to show even greater disrespect to the king? Then get what you deserve. This time the golden grouse went over a larger area. Other blades and polearms emerged from it, but unlike the previous ones, they had different touches of magic. All the weapons were magical. If last time less than 5 weapons flew at the guy, then this time the number of cutting objects reached 10. The speed with which they cut the air also increased sharply. And the defense couldn't hold up. Already on the 5th maple, the energy ribs began to crack. And it seemed that was it. Now the guy would be put on the swords, like a butterfly on a needle. Only a huge hand grew out of the ribs and blocked everything flying at the young man. While the king was trying to figure out what was happening, the ribs began to spread out and become larger. At the very top of these ribs, a large skull appeared, not inferior in size to the ribs and harmoniously fitting in size. A second hand also appeared. The skeleton itself began to slowly become covered with muscle fibers. You got me, mad dog. I'll show you the power of the king. The ripples widened even further. This blow was an order of magnitude greater than the previous 2. But this time the black creature did not simply defend. The sword that appeared was simply released at high speed from the giant's hands. The energy blade repelled all the summoned artifacts and cut through the pillar on which the king stood. Madman. I was born to be in heaven, so how dare you put me on the same level as yourself? With your impudence you have written your own death sentence. The golden ripples expanded so much that it seemed to split the world into 2. The weapons that appeared were of higher quality. Each of them was of a weak phantasm level, and some reached the middle. Wait, you brat, there's not a single piece of your body left now. But just before the attack, his face suddenly changed. You're ordering the king to retreat? You're a daredevil, take Guillaume. Turning to the back that went further away, he burst into another speech. You were a hair's breadth from death, mad dog. Hey! Spawn. Be careful not to crowd together the next time we meet, for only true heroes are allowed to keep me company. And crumbled into golden sparks. But his opponent didn't pay any attention any longer. All this time he was walking towards the girl in armor. And only after the king of heroes escaped, the girl turned to look at the young man. Green. You're not her, she had blue eyes. The huge, black giant began to dissipate. Again from the main character's perspective. Green. You're not her, she had blue eyes. And the facial features are a little different. And the crease on her forehead along with her lowered eyebrows, she didn't have that. She smiled often, and the girl in front of me seemed to have the whole weight of the world on her shoulders. I closed my eyes to return my eyes to a state of calm and dispel Susano. I wasted so much effort. But my insanity was not in vain. I came up with a way out. And only the Grail can give me what I want. If a couple of creatures can move through the worlds, then only the Grail can lead me to the spiral. The spiral exists outside of time and space. I will reach it, taking all the shells of Narcissus's soul from different departments, as in the same knowledge from Akasha. And I wish to be reborn in the same world with her. And to hell with all the strength, it can be gained again. A road traveled more than once is much easier to trample. I need to think it over again and adjust all plans. This time I have no right to make a mistake. Commentary on Chapter 6. People, this is a delicate question. According to the plot, I need to make an omake. But I don't know how you would be comfortable if the omake was part of this book, like the next chapter, or if I should write a separate drabble. Vote in the comments. Whatever you decide, that's how it will be. Omak the first. The hero is gone, but life goes on. POV, Alioth Phineas Black. My life can be divided into several segments that came after sharp turns on the road of life. Yes. Today you will hear a story about the life of the second most powerful magician in the world. As funny as it may seem, I am the strongest adept of this art and magic itself, but there is one magician who is stronger than me due to another direction on the path of power. For him, magic is a related science. And not even a science, but just another tool. But I won't get ahead of myself and will tell you everything in more detail. My first memories that I remember can be called my move to grandfather Arcturus. His estate greeted me with such love that I thought he was alive. Only later did I learn to separate the details from the bigger picture. Everything was not quite as it seemed. My grandfather, plants, and animals were glad to see me. The house itself turned out to be a simple stone building. It was this joyful greeting of all living things and the joyful laughter of my brother that I remember most from that period of my life. Initially we lived in the Bermuda Triangle. It was boring and too quiet there. Nothing alive came near our house, even flies avoided the territory of that estate. My mother said that there was the strongest barrier in the world there, installed by my father before he disappeared. My only entertainment inside the barrier was playing with my brother. He was 2 years younger than me, but he was too strong. At first I was always very offended. It was not right. I am bigger, older, but weaker. Mom said that my brother took after his father in physical strength. He, too, could break bones with his bare hands at the age of 7. But I was very envious. And the one who gave me a chance to defend my place as an older brother was my grandfather. He immediately explained that we cannot spend much time together. He is too strong as a mage and transfers too much of the clan's mana through himself. Until my first core stabilization, he cannot spend much time with me. It's dangerous. But he passed on what was left from his father. And he handed over quite a few. I have never seen so many books. But the most precious and important thing was his diary. The diary looked like a simple black notebook, but if you try to flip through all the pages, it seems endless. And from the first pages it began to appeal to me and my mother. He didn't know what happened, but the notebook was left for the last resort, when he either died or couldn't be with us. There he was ranting about how much he loved us, but it's not very believable. If he really loved us, he wouldn't have abandoned us. Only later, when I was 8, did I remember the circumstances under which my father had disappeared. But even that could not shake my hostile attitude towards him. The only thing is that the story needs to be told in order. The diary can be divided into 2 parts, what could be read and what could not. I don't know what kind of magic my father used, but to create a text that dances before your eyes until you reach the right conditions for reading it can be called a genius creation. The diary had several other ways of protection. While I held it, it absorbed my blood. If someone decides to take the open diary from me, they will receive a powerful blood magic curse. It is similar to the death magic curse decay, but while decay works magically, the curse on the diary changes the victim's blood, causing them to rot alive. Yeah. My father was quite the paranoid person. There was also a page in the diary, an envelope, signed for delivery to mother. When she received it, she cried for almost a week. You wouldn't have seen her tears yourself, but her depressed mood, lack of sleep and the marks under her eyes clearly indicated that she cried often. Mom didn't go away from depression for long. My brother was very persistent and too cheerful. He was able to bring Mom out of despondency, and from that day on, something strange began. After that letter, my mother stopped waiting for my father to return. I don't know what was in that letter, but she started devoting a huge amount of time to us. Even more than before. The answer was as simple as 2 + 2. Father asked us to be surrounded by love. We had too much potential. He didn't want us to repeat his path. Father had no attachments except for mother and us. Grandfather saw him more as a colleague at the table than a son. Grandmother hated him. Relations with the clan were too strained, which ended with the complete submission of the clan members by oaths. But this was not the most important thing in the diary. It contained knowledge on how to become the strongest. Forgot to introduce myself completely. Alioth Phineas Black, the second most powerful wizard in our world and the son of the most powerful Dark Lord in history. Something like that. And the strongest is my brother. But this parasite uses mainly chakra. Therefore, he is the strongest mage, but not the best in magic. What's the matter? He only gained mastery in combat. Huh. I'm even glad that I wasn't allowed out of the house until I was 11 and didn't see the madness that engulfed old Britain in those years. The destruction of the main religious centers was a strong blow to the Muggles. A war began in which there were no winners. North America lost all major cities under the bombing of atomic warheads. In the Soviet Union, the entire East Coast turned into a radioactive desert, and the Soviet Union itself fell apart. In China and India, magical epidemics began that the Muggles themselves could not cure. The wizards in those regions, although they lived very closely with the Muggles, did not help to cure the infection, which hints that the wizards themselves decided to reduce the Muggle population. The countries of Europe began another war, in which wizards also participated. As a result, there were huge losses on the continent. Africa never stopped fighting at all. Almost nothing changed for it. The island countries could not survive the tsunamis that occurred after the bomb explosions. It all ended with only two quiet corners of the world remaining, Britain and Australia. It's clear why Australia, the population there is 1 or 2 times smaller. But with Britain it was quite interesting. It all started with the seizure of power by magicians. After the wars in Europe began, Minister of Magic Crouch decided to take the Muggles into his hands. They were not ready for war. A weak army, constant unrest in Ireland, food dependence on other countries, the collapse of the economy with the complete destruction of London and the loss of the crown, did not give even a hint of the possibility of winning the war, even with Italy half destroyed by Father. And then Daddy's machinations came to light. More precisely, all of his preparations worked in a short period of time. Wizarding Britain had not seen such a rise since the days of Merlin. A huge number of reforms, from new orphanages to economic uplift in general. Death Eaters thought to be dead showed up, but it turned out they were sitting in their father's basement. Voldemort died quietly. Dumbledore passed away. The neutrals did not disintegrate. Hidden from Muggles, sown fields were found, which contained a huge variety of products, autonomous meat farms combined with dairy production. It was revealed that all the magical forests had been cleared of dark creatures, like acromunculas, for almost 10 years. An accidental fire in the Gringotts dungeons, in which all the goblins died. Dwarves crawled out of nowhere, and were able to intercept the entire banking system in the country. Until that moment, they had not been seen in Britain for almost a century and a half, and here they were, entangled in strict oaths for the entire nation and standing at the cash desks in the new bank, which was built in literally a week. Reinforced protection on all pockets that housed the magical part of Britain. And this was topped off with powerful propaganda. By my 11th birthday, everyone had changed, not Marlin, but my father. It was only when I went to school that I learned why he was so respected. Why didn't they tell me that my father died stopping the new march of the Inquisition? I almost hated him for abandoning us. I even stopped reading the diary. Despite all the useful advice, easy explanations, and a huge amount of data. But school was very unpleasant for me. A huge amount of attention. Not just attention. Adoration. Muggleborns knew whose father had built the shelters for wizards in which they lived, and their elders explained to them how they had lived before. Many still remembered how their pious parents had thrown them out. They knew that before their father's changes, it had been impossible for their, so to speak, caste to get ahead in life. And now they have the help of the state, which will teach them and give them a job. First-generation purebloods and half-bloods were happy for the opportunity to get a normal education. Their parents grew up at a time when non-blood mages could only learn stunning spells and had no rights as a class. But with the aristocrats it was a completely different case. They must obey me. Father simply took and forced almost all magical families to give him a vassal oath. And it was not simple, tied not to the clan, but to the family. That is, my child will receive the Vshala in the next generation. The oath is very complicated, they cannot even think about betrayal. At that time, all the aristocrats were ruled by their mother. She did not interfere with their affairs too much. More like a judge and parliamentarian. She also founded a eugenics office. Now aristocrats conduct marriages not on the basis of benefit, but in the future. And psychologists were hired from different countries. It was necessary to bring children together so that they would not resist the marriage and would be happy in it. If earlier, strong personalities were raised in families, for whom duty to the family was the most important thing, and marriage was one of the most important contributions to the family's treasury. Now everything is for the good of the country. The children were brought together at the age of 5. They got to know each other, played, competed, and at the same time, psychologists had conversations with the children, correcting their characters with words and bringing them closer to their chosen one. My brother and I were spared all of this. We had to go through the old education. This is the difference: future rulers were trained in a completely different way than their people. And only at school did I encounter organized society. There was no one there who was alone in his aspirations. Everyone was divided into groups, which were continuations of unions of different clans. At worst, each aristocrat had a fiancé/fiancée who supported them throughout their entire life. And my brother and I found ourselves above all these unions. At first, a haze of impunity and power clouded my eyes. It's a pity that this illusion disappeared very quickly. My family has risen above others, but there is always a but. But we should not only be above others by right. We should prove this right and actually rise above others. It was when I was being smeared across the dueling hall by a 7th-year student that I finally understood this, awakening the Sharingan. At that moment, everything suddenly became simpler. There is me, there is my opponent. All I need is to be better, stronger, faster, smarter, more experienced, have more knowledge. Everything else is not important. These eyes gave me the opportunity to win. And I took what was destined for me. The eyes gave excellent reaction, knowledge of how best to move, and even predicted the enemy's further movements. The senior student had no chance. The 7th-year student himself was not a weakling, on the contrary, he was among the top 10 strongest in our school, and was an aristocrat from a magical family, which meant he had knowledge that exceeded the school course. And this victory became a confirmation of my place in society. But this recognition did not blind me. I clearly saw that if I only stumbled with my back exposed, I would be torn to pieces. And so my aspirations and worldview became established. Who should lead the magicians into the future? Only the best. The one who has the best innate abilities, the sharpest mind and strength. That is, the usual policy of Darwinism. I began not only to study, but also to seek out talented people at school. My idea was to raise a new generation with me, which would be better than the past. Children should surpass their parents, and if we also warm up the children's desire to grow. This is how the main postulates appeared, according to which I began to lead our country in the future. And it was my generation that I tested my theory on. I gathered the best in school, and then gave them knowledge about everything and a lot of knowledge about the areas in which they were talented, fueling their activity with tough competition. Only the best received new knowledge, resources, services. Well, those who managed to take breadcrumbs from the table, that is, the most cunning. But not everyone had a goal. They simply tried to become the best, as in a normal game, and the knowledge and resources I gave them increased their chances of becoming the best in the next game. And only the heirs of the clans had clearly defined goals. They wanted to join me, raising the position of their clan and grasping new knowledge. And then Voldemort came in handy. He gave me everything I needed to ideologically pump up my protégés. In my company, Muggle-borns and half-bloods have proven more than once that talent and persistence give a good chance to rise, and all the cries of fanatics about them stealing magic are just another way to retain power. The pure-blooded boys had a chance to prove that the new generation is superior to the old. This is about the clans that joined Tom. They zealously tried throughout the war to prove that their parents were on the wrong side, and that they would rise up standing shoulder to shoulder with the heir of the strongest Dark Lord. The children of pure-blooded neutrals and light were initially quite motivated in the destruction of Riddle. But for my brother it was all giggles and laughs. His body was many times bigger than mine. But he was into all sorts of nonsense. Played chess, spit stones. I didn't know what to do with him. My mother didn't put pressure on him, she didn't put pressure on me, but she often gave me advice and told me about my father. Only by the age of 14, I simply understood that my father hadn't managed to do even 1/10 of his plans. As my mother told me in the summer before my 4th year, on the day my father went missing, she and my brother were killed with a holy weapon. I can't imagine how my father managed to bypass the well-known constant, but he was able to bring his mother and unborn brother back to life. And the answer was found in the diary. It told about how the father came from another world. I was in shock for a long time. My mother knew about this part of my father's biography, but she didn't tell me, saying that the diary would give me the knowledge exactly when I was ready, and since my husband was in a hurry, it was better not to interfere with his plans. So, in the world where Father was born, exactly where he brought chakra to us, there was a goddess. She came from another reality and ate the fruit of the tree god, becoming the ruler and goddess of that world. She held the world in an iron grip, but was fair and smart, so the world developed and chakra began to slowly become a part of society. But this could not continue for long. The ruler, having dumped the upbringing of her children on other people, signed her own death sentence. The people at court didn't like that justice was happening in the world. That if they stole, they would be hanged on the next tree with a common robber, so they incited the children of the goddess to revolt. You see, she is so bad and stifles the flower of the nation in the person of these non-entities who think only about their fat asses and pockets. The kids were young and strong, and one of them had justice in his ass, so they gathered an army to fight their mother. While she was throwing the meat, they sneaked up and sealed the mother. But according to the announced plan, the mother was supposed to be sealed in the body of the tree god, in order to return his own fruit to him, but the second of the children did not want to throw away the force and sealed the mother in himself. Then everything went according to plan. He punched his brother in the face and sent him to the moon to guard the body of the tree god. Later, each of the sons had children. The slyest one had 2 sons. And here history repeated itself. The elder wanted justice. He was supposed to rule the world with his firm hand, but his brother was persuaded by the worthless at court. You see, the elder brother is too strict. The conflict was gaining momentum until the eldest son was set up and fell into disgrace with his father, who made his younger brother, a fool who was happy to lick all the asses in the area, his heir. 2 brothers fought to the death, their children continued the war, their grandchildren picked up the banner and resumed the battle. And so it went on until one day, one part of the family separated from the younger son's branch. My father was a half-breed of this family, and his mother was also from another family with bright abilities passed on by inheritance. On the path of his ascension, his father was able to reach the level of one of the sons of the goddess before sealing his mother. My father also mentioned that the data in the diary came directly from him, that is, as soon as he learned about something, the brain set the secrecy stamp. When my mind and abilities reached the necessary level, I could get the knowledge left in the diary. This could be knowledge obtained at the beginning of my father's path, and on the next page, research close to the day of his disappearance. It was at the age of 14 that I learned that my father had entered the interworld. He could already be in another world, where he could still be hanging out in timelessness. For him, time could move at a different speed than ours. But he is definitely alive. At the end of the story there is an ellipsis. His story is not over yet. At the end of the story, my father gave me his blessing. According to him, even before my brother was born it was clear that he would be a bright one. According to him, bright people could never lead the people in difficult times, because only after making hundreds of mistakes due to their naivety, they became good kings only by the end of their reign. This message became another reason for me to distance myself from my brother. He had previously only shamed me and slowed me down, but now it became clear that he could also become my opponent for the throne. But even though I moved away from him, I kept an eye on him and his surroundings. Not in vain. It's a pity that I became ready for my father's story late, otherwise I would have understood earlier that the miscarriages of Dumbledore's policy had already driven the dogmas of their luminary into his head. I still don't understand why no one has voiced the true facts of Dumbledore's death. He died for breaking his oaths. His name should be covered in shame. Only oathbreakers deserve this. And blood traitors are allowed into the castle. This was one of my father's projects that never saw the light of day. It's a pity. I stopped at the war with Voldemort. His movement did not gain much traction among wizards. It immediately stalled, since almost everyone had their marks removed, and no one wanted to become a blood traitor. At that time, there were constant attempts on my life. I even once disembodied a noseless man at the age of 17. But it wasn't me who finished him off. As funny as it is, Tom had 2 main targets, me and Potter. Another one of the Light One's fosterlings. And it was Potter who finished off Tom while I held off the armada of various creatures. Tom gathered all the non-human races from Europe and drove them to the walls of Hogwarts. If he had more wizards, he would have started with the Ministry, but it was not meant to be. And here I am standing on the walls of the castle and smearing an army of different creatures, Dad invented many ways of mass destruction of non-human races and dark creatures, so my protégés and I held up well, and in the end, when nothing was left of the armada, Weasley flew out on a broom and started shouting that Potter and my brother killed Voldemort in the toilet. The light ones tried to raise a wave and put my brother on top, but they failed. Firstly, I was an adult, and he was not. And secondly, to kill one mage in a toilet without witnesses and watch the battle of 24 mages with an armada of several thousand. There is no comparison here. Thus, almost triumphantly, Elliot Phineas Black, British since the age of 18, ascended the throne, for the ministry had been completely restructured, becoming only an apparatus for the execution of my laws and my will. This continued until my brother decided to challenge me to a duel. The duel never took place. I found out the reason and passed on a message to my brother from my father. The message itself was too raw in content, and he understood it on the day of his disappearance, because he learned about his second son almost at the same time when he was destroying religion in the world. In short, the father passed on the legacy to each son. He was a very smart creature, and calculating what each of his children would become, he wrote that history goes in a spiral in all the world, and the confrontation of the light-haired younger one with a Gryffindor brain with a dark, tough and serious older brother, this is simply the law of the genre. Here are some of his jokes I couldn't understand, but after reading a little fiction and ancient chronicles, the younger son always became the traitor. After all, it is easier to fool him, because more time is devoted to the heir. An interesting fact, in my opinion. So here it is. If my father bequeathed to me the rule of Britain, then to my brother he bequeathed the path of a wanderer. As it was written in the letter, this is really fun, you'll like it. Your brother is not suited to this life path, just like me, but I am passing on to you the knowledge of traveling between worlds that I have. When you can master it and supplement it, you will set off on your journey. Ahem ahem. Here is my advice to you, son. Go on a journey around the world, because only he is a hero who extends a hand to those in need of help, and not he who makes politics with blood. My brother disappeared for 2 weeks, or rather, he didn't go out in public and drank at home. When he returned, he sent all his friends away, saying that his brother's throne was one of his father's wishes, and that he himself was not a puppet who sheds blood at someone else's behest. Once again I am convinced that my father influenced me and my brother with genjutsu and mentalism through his notebook. Well, I'm not offended. As for me, he couldn't personally guide me as a son, but he took up my upbringing through a notebook. That's how we lived. At 30, my brother left for another world, said he would not return, and left me with the responsibility of raising his 4 children and providing for his 3 wives. I would twist his head off, but I can't reach him. I had my own children when I was 20 years old. Son and daughter. Twins. If I gave my father's diary to my son and began to prepare for a coup in one of the countries where I would put my son on the throne when he came of age. After all, if the pace of learning from the diary does not drop, then he will be able to implement revolutionary activity, and he will be ready for the throne, but I am not yet old enough to pass on the throne. At first, my daughter was very spoiled, but when I finally ignored the scandals of my mother and wife, simply took the rod and devoted at least 2 hours a day to raising my daughter for 2 years, all her golden youth habits evaporated in an instant. The world moved on, almost all countries began to practice monarchy or a circle of magicians, because the status of secrecy collapsed, and those who were waiting for our mistake did not live to see this moment. I'm talking about fanatics. And so we lived until my mother died. Her time has come in bed, among her family. According to her, the only thing she regrets is that she did not wait for her father, but she is tired of waiting, so it is time for her to go. And just then one of the great-grandchildren came running to me and showed me that new lines had appeared in my father's diary. Commentary on OMAC first. The hero has disappeared, but life goes on. I wanted to and wrote. Chapter 7. All I wanted to do was get drunk. Which is what I did. I had enough intelligence to change my skin tone and clothing. Now I was wearing my usual black 3-piece suit. Finding a place to drink was also easy. Drinking spots are always located in approximately the same place. So, sitting with a glass of cheap drink, I thought and remembered the past. There was much to think about. The outburst of rage and apathy in the port is very easy to explain. The breakup of the marriage and constant emotional outbursts fueled by madness had distorted plans and changed the goals of the war quite a bit. But I don't want to drink because of this. As soon as the outburst of rage ended, as it should have, apathy set in. And it lasted too little. That is not the most important thing. Now that the marriage is broken, I clearly celebrate the changes. Maybe they happened earlier, but when? There has been a change in my feelings. At this point, I can say for sure, I have only just begun to fall in love with Narcissa. I was a formed personality from birth, having undergone special training. After the casemates of the route, training in occlumency and often suppressing emotional surges due to the eyes and summoning, I could clearly separate my feelings from the influence of the body. But I didn't know how to work with magic then. And even now I can say with a clear conscience that I didn't work with magic that affects feelings. A complex mixture of potion making, witchcraft, illusions, and at least a dozen more sections of magic in one science. And I'm sure that the blacks could easily use all of the above on me. Oh no. Narcissa also went through all of the above. It's a different matter. By the time we met, I was over a quarter of a century old, and while my mind wasn't warped by a child's body and I was steadily gaining experience, the process of psychological maturation didn't stand still. Yes, it slowed down, 10 times more, but by 20 it had reached standard speed. And only after the birth of my son, Narcissa stopped being a child for me. Sadly, this is how periods of coldness in the family occur in purebred couples. Constantly directed and suppressed feelings, only at the last stage of the core development, come into pronounced movements, like in teenagers. The fun is that they last a couple of months, but even so, old attitudes and the marriage bond quickly straighten everything out to its original state. To be honest, I'm just sure that the body is to blame. More precisely, its absence. I myself could have long ago taken off everything that was hung on me in the family. But why? All this was aimed at loyalty to family and clan. And at that time I was going to use the clan as my foundation. I was sure that I could change it from the inside. Very naive. In the past world, at 30 you were already a veteran of several wars and one of the most successful people on the continent, and at 40 you were already a full-fledged pensioner. Well deserved. With a maximum lifespan of a couple of 100 years for some clans. And such people became elders, because not every 100th Jonin lived to such an age. What about the blacks? The blacks, on the contrary, have more than half of their clan members, old conservatives who think that they are the smartest and that only they know how to live. And if they really knew the traditions, then about what is beyond the balls with the same old farts. What can I say? They only started worrying about Tom when he destroyed a couple of clans of such smartest recluses. For that he could have been shaken by the hand, but otherwise he did first-class shit. The blacks had no future in that world. If history had gone on as usual, with a minor change in the form of full-blooded blacks, then nothing would have changed. They were too arrogant and weak. And they decided to ruin the strong growth. Andromeda, Narcissa, Bellatrista, Sirius, Regulus. They were all strong magically and with an inner core, as such, and what did we see in canon? 2 psychos, 2 unhappy women and a corpse. An excellent state of affairs. And I was a revolutionary in the family, but even when I won the interfamily intrigues and made everyone bow down, they were just waiting for a chance to stab me in the back. And I, an idiot, expected the discipline of the past world from them. I compared the military aristocracy and these 19th century revelers. So what am I talking about? I don't feel like I've lost the love of my life. And the war doesn't add to the mood. Unlike the masters, I clearly honor the curse of the Grail. The difference between the cursed Grail and the pure one is like the difference between a lamp with a genie and a shaitan. Both fulfill wishes, but the genie fulfills approximately what they wish for, and the shaitan specifically distorts the words of the one who made the wish. Oh. How many people have gone mad from the tricks of the shaitans? There were those who wished that time had no power over their lives, a very clear formulation, but only the shaitan can throw the wisher into a world where there is no such constant as time. The one who wished for immortality is killed, because he will no longer have death. The Grail can do the same. No. He will do so anyway. If the being I met was possessed by the Grail, then even wishing to be in Akasha, I will end up there as a soul or soul fragments after the reincarnation procedure. And my mind definitely won't survive searching in that dimension. I don't even know what Akasha is. Maybe it's a big pool of memory? And by all indications it looks very similar. But it often happened that mages died while viewing memories. And in Akasha I can only find a memory imprint, and what about 6 more shells? The first and second are not difficult for me to create, the third would be corrected by the family, the fourth, or the core, can theoretically be attracted or summoned at any moment. The memory stolen in Akasha, the emotions would be restored over time with the help of memory. They would be faded and only a memory of past emotions, but it is bearable. But what to do with the gift of magic? The emergence of magic is a complex process. Very complex. I have a rough idea of how I got magic. Through my eyes, I initially received a channel to someone else's magic, thereby strengthening all my soul shells to the highest quality mana. Then, through this channel, a network of magic channels was grown into me. And only at the third stage, after creating a special cavity from the ephemeral substance from which magic channels are made, they placed a core in me, sewing a caress of magic to the end. Someone very cool and protective of the Uchiha does not mind sharing mana with them, and when they reach a certain point, cut off a piece from their 7th layer, tying it to a man-made core. And I believe that this core was copied from the sender. Well, and then, when the soul goes to rebirth, the small core will be attracted to the big one and will give a decently enlarged piece of the 7th shell of the soul. There may be various additions in the form of gifts, there may be curses, but entities of such orders can cleanse the unnecessary and grow the useful. Maybe it's Rakuto's tricks, maybe someone else's, it doesn't matter. The main thing is that I changed the original core from the